Well, good afternoon and welcome to H360 Live. My name is Dave Duplay. I am joined here in the studio with my colleague Courtland Long from h360. Courtland, how are you today?
I'm well, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. What about this fall weather we're having here in New York?
Beautiful. This weather is awesome.
Yeah, this is my favorite time of the year. Football season. The leaves are going to start turning.
Yeah, I can't wait to see some nice colorful leaves going on.
Absolutely. Well, we have a great show for you today. We have Brian and Diane Vitale coming into the studio in just a minute. Brian is an Our Human Spirit Award winner. Everyone knows what that is. He is also a transplant recipient and also responsible to a large degree for helping build the transplant house in Cleveland, Ohio, my hometown. So I'm going to talk about the Browns and everything Cleveland sports related. Just kidding. We're going to talk about his story, his journey, and the transplant house of Cleveland. Courtland, it's going to be a great show. This is a show about inspiration, motivation, and love. It has all the makings of a Hallmark movie, if I've ever seen one, and you are not going to want to miss this. But before we get started and they come into the studio, as always, we have some interesting health tips. And I'm going to take us back a month or two. Remember we did the Strange But True health tips?
Yeah, they were very successful.
Well, they were strange but true.
Yes.
And everyone loved them, right? Some of them were a little hard to believe, but they were true. If you like the strange but true health tips, chat it to the right. Use the hashtag #RealStories to help us out. So, Courtland, what about these strange but true health tips? So what do we have here?
Well, these ones are great, especially since cold and flu season is right around the corner if it's not here already. So if you're trying to boost your immune system, you know, medications and store-bought remedies certainly have their time and place, but if you're trying to live just a little bit more naturally, we have some really good alternative techniques.
We do, and you know they call me El Natural. I'm all about the natural, right? The holistic part of healthcare.
Yeah.
So the strange but true health tip, this is a really interesting one, and it is about dirt. Did you know that dirt can improve your immune system?
Well, I think, you know, that makes sense, getting in some of the good germs to take over the bad germs.
Yeah, now, you know, when I was a kid, my mother always used to say, go outside, but don't get dirty. And I a lot of years in therapy, but, and she was wrong. This strange but true health tip says dirt can actually help your immune system. So go out, do a little gardening, get a little bit of that dirt underneath your nails. It's going to be good and good for you. Take a walk in the country. A little bit of dirt is going to improve your immune system. Did you know that?
I believe it.
It's strange, but true. Absolutely.
Well, the second tip is to turn off your bedside lamp to feel happier. So if you're noticing that you're experiencing all these mood swings before you're going to bed, it could be because this artificial light is screwing up your body's circadian rhythm, because the darkness cues your body to produce melatonin, which is the hormone that makes you feel sleepy. So keep your room dark before you're going to bed and try to sleep in total darkness when you're already there.
Okay, now I know, now in my room, for example, it's not total dark, but I'm okay with that. I do have blinds on my window, but they do let a little bit of the sun in. Now, I know you recently invested in this clock, this alarm clock that actually when you go to bed at night, it lowers the brightness of the clock until it's pitch black. And then again in the morning, it's the reverse. It slowly, gradually builds up the light. How are you getting along with that new clock?
Yeah, well, so I talk about this clock to our colleagues all the time, and I love it. So I would say it's less of a clock and more of a lamp, because it is this large sphere that sits on my bedside table. And you're right, you know, I put it on 20 minutes before I go to bed, and it gradually decreases the amount of light that it emits until it's in total darkness. And I often find that I'm falling asleep before it's even all the way off. Now,
do you think I should get to work on writing an app for our mobile phones for that?
Well, I'm not sure that would be very helpful to our viewers, because I think the light that our cell phones emit and the light that this lamp emits is different, and the blue light from our cell phones, I think, makes our brains wake up a little bit more.
So it's all about that circadian rhythm.
All about the circadian rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. Strange, but
true.
True. Absolutely. Well, the last one is all about if you find yourself having some sore throats or some slight headaches, you might want to try being a little more honest. Can you believe that?
I can believe it. You know, I think little white lies probably stress you out a little bit. You have to remember who you told what to.
Have you been looking at my notes? Because that's exactly right. So, you know, when my sister used to say to me when we were kids, liar, liar, pants on fire, she may have wanted to change that to liar, liar, throat on fire, because it's the sore throat that gets at you when you tell those little white lies. And, you know, I've got this friend that is famous for this little white lie. So we'll make plans to go to dinner, and we'll have 8 o'clock dinner reservations, and I'll text him about 5 minutes to 8. Now, 5 minutes to 8, I'm at the restaurant, I'm ready to go, I'm an early guy, you know, timing is everything. And I'll text him at 5 minutes to 8, and he'll say, I'm on the way, and the reality is he's just getting in the shower. That little white lie drives me nuts.
Yeah, I think we all have a friend like that. I had one in college, and it does drive you a little crazy.
Yeah, and you know, come to think of it, every time we have dinner and I see him, he always says, I've got this little tickle in my throat, and now I know what that's all about.
Yeah, now you can remind him about this strange but true health tip.
Absolutely. So this health tip was strange but true. Absolutely. So now we send our interns out into the streets of New York to see exactly what our New York friends know about some of these strange but true health tips. You're not going to believe this. This is a great video clip here. Would you like to share it with me?
Would love to. Okay,
Maddie, please run the video.
Do you think things such as gardening or hiking helps you improve your immune system?
I think it should. I think it does, because you're in the fresh air, so you get the sun, you get the fresh air.
I believe so, because exposing yourself to the elements and like getting into dirt, it boosts your immune system actually to have some bad germs and bacteria, because if you're not exposed to that, you're very like weak, you're not used to it. So when you finally are exposed to it, your body won't be ready. So I think it's good in small doses at least to get exposed to all these germs and stuff, to toughen up your skin in a sense.
Yeah, I think that gardening and hiking can improve your immune system, but if you're doing it and like you smoke lots of cigarettes and drink lots of, I don't know, you can't just do that, but I think that probably helps it, yeah.
Why do you think it's hard for some people to fall asleep at night?
I think it could be hard, maybe stress, maybe related to work, to school, when you're thinking, all those things, maybe caffeine if people take coffee before they go to sleep.
Perhaps people are a little too occupied with what's going on in the day, and they kind of should just like unwind and just kind of clear your mind, because you can get caught up thinking like, oh, I should have done this, like regrets or whatever. So you probably should just like stretch and just kind of like just let it all drop and like blank mind, and then you'll be able to sleep easier.
It's hard for people to fall asleep at night because their minds are too active, and you know, I've read this, I'm no scientist, but I've read that if you look at your screen too soon before going to bed, or like your computer screen or your iPhone, the glare, obviously, like it tells your mind like it's daytime. It's best to like turn those off beforehand.
Oh, okay.
So I know a lot of people have different reasons for why they don't go to bed, but I think that's one huge reason, and that's why I turn mine off. I try my best to turn mine off, like at least 2 hours before. It never works, but I try to.
Do you believe that adding stress to your life leaves you more vulnerable to getting sick?
Oh, I think it does, because it does affect me, that's for sure. I get stressed a lot with work, and my immune system is really, really bad. So if I don't have a good night's sleep, I am more prone to fall sick, to be sick. And yeah, stress does affect being sick.
Absolutely, yeah. And from past experiences, I felt like when I've been maybe sick during other winter seasons, when I've had some, you know, more work than usual, I've become more sick during those periods, during those times.
Yes, I think so. Me myself, I don't get stressed very easily, and I never get sick. So I can say from almost personal experience, I have a really strong immune system and I don't get stressed. It just kind of brings you down. It's unnecessary, because being stressed about something won't change the outcome. It'll just haunt you inside, and you're the only one who gets hurt in the end.
Courtland, wow, what a video, huh?
Absolutely, everybody was very in line with our health tips. One young woman had some good tips for falling asleep, you know, doing some light stretching before, clearing your mind. I thought that was helpful.
Yeah, it seemed like, you know, the people that we interviewed this week, or our interns, you know, had time with, we're all about holistic,
Yes.
right? And some of the remedies that we talked about, and you know, the nature thing and the dirt,
Yeah.
right, really
Yeah.
played into it well.
Right, and decreasing your stress, you know, whether it's from work or telling some little white lies, and how that certainly affects your immune system. They're very on board.
So a lot of scratchy throats going on?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. Well, that was a great video. Our interns didn't disappoint, and the New Yorkers that we interviewed and spent time with did not disappoint either. Well, now, Courtland, our favorite time of the show, we have our guests here with us, and I just want to reiterate here that Brian is a transplant recipient. He is also the recipient of the Healthy h360 Our Human Spirit Award, which we bestowed upon him a month or so ago. And he is also a survivor of hepatopulmonary system. I'm just going to call it HPS because I'm going to continue to pronounce it wrong. And he is also instrumental in helping fund the Transplant House of Cleveland, which is a great facility. We're going to hear all about that because this is where people go when they're on the transplant list and they're waiting. And it's almost, I would call it a home away from home. And the people of Cleveland have been so gracious and warm welcoming them in. Brian and Diane, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
We have so much to talk to you guys about because your journey and what you've done, you know, post your transplant has been nothing but incredible. We met you at the New Jersey Sharing Network's event, the 5K Run.
Yes.
And you came by our table that we had and we got to chat with you, got to know more about your story. So there's so much we want to get into. And of course, the caregiver plays such an important role in the whole equation. It's not just the patient, but it's really the caregiver and the patient as a health team.
Yeah.
So Courtland, why don't we jump right in and let's get started.
Yes, I would love to. Well, again, thank you both so much for
Thank you
coming
for
in
having
today.
us here. We appreciate that.
Yeah, could you give us a little bit about your history? You know, Dave and I know you guys pretty well, but for our viewers who don't know, could you tell them a little bit about your background?
Well, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, went to Trenton State Teachers College. At 21 years old, I left college to start a financial services company, which today is known as Vitale Cruz and Associates in Warren, New Jersey. And basically, I was leading a pretty normal life until found out I had a liver problem.
So you say you're leading a pretty normal life. There was no signs early age that there was something in your future, you were healthy, you were active, things were going well?
Yes. Yeah, there was just no, normal symptoms, which would be discoloration or swelling or anything. There was just nothing.
And how long ago was it when you first noticed something was wrong?
About 2012, a little shortness of breath. In 2013, January, a little more. Ran up a flight of stairs and carried a little suitcase and was pretty huffing and puffing by the time I got up there.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to around March, and then had heart tests for breathing problems, and then lung tests, and then finally one pulmonologist said, maybe you should go to the Mount Sinai in New York, and you might have a liver problem, which was like, wow, how's your liver related to your lungs?
Yeah.
Kind of caught us off guard, but eventually that's what hepatopulmonary is. The liver stops making a certain molecule that allows your lungs to absorb oxygen. So, and it's a terminal condition if you don't have a liver transplant. So that's basically how we got to New York, was for an evaluation to get a really good diagnosis of what was going on.
Yeah. And Diane, could you see some of these symptoms in Brian? Were you aware of what was going on early on?
Yeah, the shortness of breath, though, at his age, was originally thinking, getting older, just out of shape. I saw a few other things. He was tired a lot, which didn't seem quite right. Needed a lot of naps. So there was, looking back now, you can kind of see, like, if you put it all together, that something was wrong. But it was a shock. You've got liver, failure, and you need to get on the transplant list. And it was just a whirlwind after that.
Wow.
Right. So what was the treatment? Was there any kind of treatment up until you were able to get the transplant? I know earlier you were telling us that you were on oxygen. Was there anything else?
The only treatment we had was oxygen. And initially it wasn't small liter doses, and eventually it got to be some heavy-duty amounts of oxygen. It was interesting because at Mount Sinai, the first thing I was told was you have, when we went to get our diagnosis, it was happened to be Good Friday in April 2013, you know what, Mr. Vitale, we're really sorry, but liver disease comes in 4 stages, 1 through 4, you don't want to be a 4, and you're 4.5. And oh, by the way, your liver is shutting your lungs down. It's terminal hepatopulmonary syndrome, and there's no cure, there's no surgery, there's no medicine. It's just a very rare disorder, and unless you get a liver transplant, you're not going to make it. And also, because your heart's beating so hard, you're going to get congestive heart failure. So it was a pretty bleak diagnosis. And their waiting list here in New York, where the donation rate's about 23% of the population, was a 2-year wait. So they suggested if we could go to Cleveland, let's do that. So we went to Cleveland to be evaluated. We came home in May, and then we went back in October because I was getting to the condition where I wouldn't be able to travel. So we needed to get close, if not directly across the street from the clinic, to Cleveland, in Cleveland, and which we did. We drove out, took a room, and we were there. Well, I was there for 2 months, and Diane spent an additional 5 months, so 7-month hotel room stay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're just told you need a new liver. You have HPS, which is a really scary diagnosis to begin with, and there's no cure for that.
Right.
And then you're told that, well, if you get on the transplant list in New York, by the way, there's about a 2-year wait. You're thinking in your head, and Diane, you've got to be thinking, there's no 2 years. This is
it.
Right, so we've got to figure out what's plan B here. So you decide to look around and you say, okay, there's some other states maybe that I can get on the list. And I guess, so you can be on the list in more than one state, is that right?
Yes. First of all, the donation rate in Ohio is 60%, and less people have a need, so there was a better opportunity that they had about a 6-month window. So I figured, all right, I've got 6 months, it's a 6-month window, what do we have to lose? So we went out there, but yes, you can. The problem is Mount Sinai in New York and the Cleveland Clinic actually have a working relationship. So they sent all my medical records out. Cleveland did some additional testing, and I qualified to be on their transplant list. We thought about going to the Mayo just to increase your odds. I figured, well, as many different districts as I can get listed in, the better chance I'll get an organ. And but the problem is the other clinics wanted me to go through another week or 7 days of really not, some tests very simple, some tests not very nice, and I was getting to the point where I was too weak to do that. So we collectively prayed over this and said, okay, I'm going to put all my marbles into the Cleveland Clinic corner. Best thing we ever did.
So now you're a financial planner by background, right? By profession, and a financial planner never puts all their eggs in one basket. But Diane, what are you thinking? You're saying, wow, this isn't the normal MO here.
Yeah, we had a lot of input, and just that was based on all the criteria and looking at it from all different angles. That was we felt the best option for us. And being a financial planner, Brian, he plans for everything. So everybody and everything was taken care of, but yeah.
And so while you are in Cleveland, you got a call pretty early on.
We did. About 4 days after we arrived there, so we were there October 7th, 2013. October 11th, we get a call, get ready. And we were like, wow, 4 days. And we were a little nervous, and I looked at Diane.
I'm surprised it was that soon.
It was that soon. I said, this is why we came here. So let's just say our prayers and run across the street. And we did, and they prepped me, and I was brought into an operating room with all the lights and all the people running around. And they put me under, and 3 hours I woke up, and I was in recovery, but I didn't feel bad. And I figured, uh-oh, and I went like this, and no transplant. Unfortunately, the organ that came in from out of state was too large and a little fattier than they'd like it to be. It was really not for me. So rather than them doing it anyway, they said this, in order to cure that hepatopulmonary, I had to have a fairly well healthy liver. Thank you. And so that we got aborted, and I stayed in the hospital for a day, went back to the hotel, and then the wait begins. And the wait is, it's a very difficult wait for both of us. You're in a hotel room, you're alone. There's really no family, there's no friends, there's no one to talk to except each other, which is okay. But some outside social workers would have been nice, or some other people had experienced what I was experiencing, because you're basically waiting unfortunately, you're praying to get a life-saving transplant, but really indirectly you're hoping or praying that someone's going to have to die for that to happen. And it's just a really difficult, black time of your life, dark time of your life, thinking that someone had to pass for you to live.
Yeah. So emotionally, you're off the lights. You wake up, no transplant, and you're like, oh boy.
Oh boy.
And how many times is this going to happen? And if I have to have a liver that's in really top shape for the HPS that I have,
right.
We could be waiting a while here.
Yes. Yeah, we were aware of that. You know, I'm not the only person to ever have a dry run. There are people that we know now that have had 3, 4, 5 dry runs. That's really got to be disheartening. So we had one, and the second one worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point here for you people watching at home is you got to get on the donor list, right? In New Jersey, you know, we're on the donor list, and it's njsharingnetwork.org. That's an organization that's doing some fantastic stuff. They've been on our show a couple times. We really admire the work that they do, so go check them out. Donate Life is another great organization if you don't live in New Jersey or the tri-state area, but it's so important. You hear from Brian and Diane's story here how important a transplant is, and you hear the numbers. I mean, so you know, I urge everyone to please think about this, contemplate it, and tell your family if that's your wishes to be on the transplant list. You gotta share that with your family, because in the time of need, when somebody needs that organ or that tissue, you don't want, if that's your wishes, you don't want those wishes being uninterrupted. Yeah. So let's continue on with some things, because we really want to get to the real work that you did after your transplant.
Right, let's shift gears to the Transplant House of Cleveland. I'm so happy that you were able to get this transplant and you're here with us today and doing amazing work for the community as a whole. So you guys spent an astronomical amount of time in a hotel across the street from the hospital, which I can imagine is physically and emotionally isolating. Was this...
And not to say the expenses that are accompanied with that.
Absolutely.
Which creates fortunately for us, we were able to do it, but for anybody else, I'm not so sure how many people can stay in a hotel for 7 months.
Yeah.
It's just, financially, when someone has a transplant of any type, it's devastating. Most people get wiped out.
And was your time in this hotel the inspiration behind starting the Transplant House of Cleveland?
Yeah.
Yeah. Being there, you know, I got friendly with some other people who's had family members that were getting transplanted or other health issues. And I kept telling Brian how grateful I was that I couldn't imagine if we were going through the health crisis and then had the financial burdens and everything else. Because, well, these people were not from Cleveland, they're from all across the country. And we were so lucky that we didn't have that issue. So we knew we wanted to give back, and at the time there was no, you know, there's other facilities at other hospitals, and because the transplant family is so unique in their journey, the whole idea of having a transplant house where we can have a community and a home away from home for people and they can support each other, it was really important to us.
Well, we've seen photos of this house, and it is beautiful. You
guys, you
did an amazing job. Yeah. So how is the house structured? You know, is it apartments or is it individual rooms?
Yeah, it's a 16 apartments. There are 4 quads all lined up. So if you look at the building, it's rather long, but the first building is a quad, and there's 2 up, 2 down, and there's some 1- and 2-bedroom apartments there.
Which is nice that you have a kitchen so you can prepare meals.
You can cook your own food. Yeah, there's a shuttle that goes between University and Cleveland clinics every 30 minutes. So a lot of people in the Cleveland clinic, patients at the transplant house, what we usually call our guests, they don't have to have a car. They can get shuttled back and forth to the clinics with their shuttle system. And yeah, we were originally approached by a woman named Erica Miller. She's the wife of Dr. Charles Miller, who is the director of liver transplants in Cleveland. And first it was a social worker mentioned the transplant house, because there's lots of ways to give back. So whether it's research or sponsor a doctor, and the social worker said, how about the transplant house? And that raised some eyebrows. And they were trying to raise money. It was on the drawing board for about 3 years. And, you know, how do you raise money for a building you don't have? So you'd say, hey, why don't you give to the transplant house? And they're like, where is it? We don't have it yet. So what we were able to do is meet Erica and a group of people there that had the same vision that she had, and the same wonderful giving spirit that they want to get a home for just transplant people, so we can share stories. So we have a family night every Wednesday night. Everybody comes together. It's a beautiful project. And we met with Erica, and then we prayed over this and decided, okay, this is our calling. We are going to give them the jump start they need. So we wrote a check, because that's what it's going to take. And we got going. We provided enough to furnish the first 4 apartments, to lease the building for a year. Everybody's been a volunteer. 100% of everything that's happening has been volunteers. Thousands of hours of volunteers. ZBT fraternity lost a brother to was a transplant donor, and they come in from Case Western. They have painted and curtain rods, and they cut our lawn, and they put flowers in the gardens, and just an unlimited number of people just giving from their souls. So, you know, we tried to. Yeah.
I'm sorry. We're trying to open the house that so they'll have for short-term stays. You know, the offices could be there. There'll be a community area, and then there'll be just regular rooms that people can, you know, for short-term stay that don't need an apartment. So there's a constant, you know, looking to expand, because there's a waiting list.
Yeah.
Always, unfortunately.
It shows the need. You know, we've had 83 guests come and go the last year. Some for a couple of days. The average stay is 3 weeks. We have one guest who's been with us since day one. She's in apartment 1. Her name is Ashley, and she's waiting for a 4-organ transplant. She's had 2 dry runs in the last few months, but hopefully we'll be able to save her life. And it's just you know, remarkable to see all the interactions of these people. These people are all helping each other.
Right.
And then there's volunteer social workers. And the question was, you know, if a doctor needs to do a visit, it's their apartment. They can have whoever they want to come there.
So families come and spend time, and But then to get the rehabilitation, you have a shuttle that takes the people around to where they need to go and drop them off, pick them up.
Every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, how do patients find out about the house?
Mostly because they all of a sudden realize they need to be in Cleveland, and they go to housing, and then the hospital will start recommending the transplant house or some of the local hotels. But even the local hotels, I mean, you're still alone.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, hotel is fun for a week or 2 if you're on vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell them long term. You know, it was not pleasant. And listen, the hotel was really, thank God we could afford that, but it was really not conducive to her mental health or my physical health. Every time she'd leave me, I knew she was going back to alone in the Cleveland winter, since you're from Cleveland.
Right. Yeah.
But he worried about me too, you know.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
No support staff, nothing. You know, so our experiences would have been so much better if there had been a transplant house where she could go shopping with a girl, or maybe go to a movie, or have dinner together with someone, and just, you know, community, you know, sense of being there. When people came from out of state to visit us, we were feeling bad. You know, they're spending $2,000, $3,000 to get out there, and then they're paying the hotel rates, which are outrageous, and you know, and they have to bring a car or rent a car or fly in. It was like, you know, if we had a nice little apartment, so we pull out the couch or something, let them sleep there, but we still had our own kitchen. You could still cook. You could still talk to the lady across the street or next door, and we're 2 blocks from Little Italy, which you're familiar with. So Mia Bella's, hello Mia Bella's, we could go there, and, you know, and it was nice. It was nice.
So if you want more information, the website is transplanthouseofcleveland.org.
Yes.
You can go there, you can check out all the great things they're doing. You can donate there, I would imagine.
Yes.
So if anybody is interested, they're taking donations. This is a really great place. It helps so many people. You've done great work. We're almost out of time, but, you know, we're all about takeaways here. And so, you know, you've been on this incredible journey. You're doing great work. What's the single biggest takeaway as you look back, both on your transplant journey and on what you've done for Transplant House? What's the single biggest takeaway that you can share with our viewers?
This could happen to you all of a sudden. It's you. And you need to be on a donor list. NJ Sharing Network would be a great place to start. put it on your driver's license, make your family aware of your wishes. If there's no donor, there's basically no Brian. If there's no Brian, the transplant house may or may not have gotten off the ground, and it was under a project for a long time. So become a donor, give back, look up the transplant house. We can certainly use a lot of help, and I'm available for speaking engagements. If anybody would like to connect to the transplant house, I'd be happy to do these motivational, inspirational, educational talks for free.
Infotainment, we call it here at Healthy 360, because it's entertaining and it's informational as well. And again, the website is transplanthouseofcleveland.org. I also want to give a shout out to the New Jersey Sharing Network. That's njsharingnetwork.org, a great organization. Brian, Diane, thanks so much for coming in. I'd love to have you back.
We'd love to come back.
Yeah, you've been so great. Keep up the great work. We're anxious to stay connected and help you any way we can.
We really appreciate that.
So
thank you.
Thanks again for coming in. I'd like to thank the viewers for tuning in, and I'd like to thank our sponsors for making this all possible. Remember, all of our episodes can be viewed on demand at healthy360.com, and our podcast can now be found in the iTunes Store.
Well, we love social media, and we're all over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. We use the hashtag #RealStories when posting, and we'd love it if you would do the same. On behalf of Dave Duplay, myself, and the entire Healthy 360 family, we thank you again for joining us. We hope you have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.